if you want to test it, that's cool, or whatever you need to do.
Let's see. It should be. I think it's just going to be the only issue is going to be where it saves, so I should be okay. All
All
right.
right. If you feel good about it, I feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, cool. And keep in mind that, uh, I mean, this isn't to put pressure on you, but like, because of the nature of the show, I can't get 10 different people that are anti-fascist on. So like, I don't want you to feel like you have to be like the president and figurehead of the movement, but I am going to be asking you things that, there's the side of what it means to you, and there's also kind of the greater context of it. So just whatever that means to you, just know that, like, sorry to put that kind of pressure on you, but
No,
a lot of people will be hearing about it for the first time through you.
yeah, no, it's all right, and I'm actually kind of glad not to like toot my own horn, but I do a lot of like the Antifa organization or organizing, I should say, in where I'm at. So it's not something I'm like it's something I'm kind of used to. So
Good, good. Okay, great. All right, well, let me know when you're rolling, and I'll go ahead and start with my intro.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, here I go. So one of the things I'm really curious about in the aftermath of Charlottesville is the people who showed up to the rally as part of a movement or a group known as antifa, short for anti-fascist. When I made a joke of punching Nazis on Twitter, there were some Pepe the Frog people saying, well, Antifa's doing stuff too, they're violent too. And like when Trump said the now infamous statement about hatred and violence, quote, on all sides, unquote, he was implying, I think, that anti-fascists are just as bad and just as hateful. So I wanted to actually talk to someone who was there in Charlottesville representing the Antifa movement. And I've agreed not to use his real name, so we're going to go with Sam. Hello, Sam. Thanks for agreeing to talk with me today.
Thank you for having me.
So, can you explain for our audience what Antifa means to you?
Antifa is basically the only bastion against white supremacy and the Nazi movement that is rising in America. And don't be twisted. It is exactly that, and we've seen it before. We saw it in the 1930s in Germany, and that's exactly what we're looking at today. When you look at people like Richard Spencer and basically anybody that associates with them, Nathan D'Amigo and all those alt right people, and frankly, it's startling that we're painted as kind of the bad guys when we have all these people that are fighting to save Confederate statues and other pieces of the remnants of white supremacy in this country, and nobody seems to really care about it and want to do anything about it. So we're kind of the go-to people to actually stop it and to put up a fight against it.
Gotcha. And obviously that is not just a war of words, and it's not just about showing up with the sign. It seems like what I've heard both from eyewitness accounts and also just reading about it, you guys are the ones that might show up ready to. I don't want to put it as ready to fight, but ready to defend perhaps people that are unarmed, or ready if it's going to happen, if it's going to go there, then you guys are the ones that are ready to take it on. Is that correct in terms of violence or that kind of thing?
Yeah, basically. I mean, like if just look at the optics of the people that we're fighting against. You have these preppy guys that are they mainly all they do is kind of just like work out, and they look very scary. They bring torches with them to be intimidating, and I mean, you can just tell in their eyes the high testosterone and stuff. Like they're there to fight. They have no. I mean, people are driving from all over the country for these types of events and by the thousands, and their only purpose is to kind of have like a modern day fight club. And then you have Drumpf kind of yell at us saying that we're the ones that are starting the fighting and whatnot, and that's just completely untrue. I mean, we're there if we need to fight, then so be it. But that's not our main goal. I mean, like it's kind of the underlying thing with the alt right and stuff is that's what they're all about. And Antifa's never ever been like that. There are literally zero cases where Antifa has shown up to just destroy or fight anything or fight anybody. We're always there to uphold what this country should be, and basically a safe space for sane people, and to kind of protect our marginalized groups like the minorities and the women and stuff like that. And the fact that that's a bad thing should show you what living in Trump's America is like.
I hear what you're saying. The thing I think that a lot of people, they just don't know how to square the circle when it comes to the militant nature of it. Like I mean, it seems like a million years ago, but it was only, I think, earlier this year that Richard Spencer got punched, and uh, I had to think about whether or not I think it's okay for people that are ideologically aligned with me to be physically violent as an expression of that ideology. And at first I was like, no, we're liberal people. We don't hit. And then a lot of people told me a lot of stuff. And I kind of went like, I finally just came around to the idea of like, well, I'm not really a fighter. I don't think I'm going to throw that punch. But at the same time, it's like
Somebody
I'm
has
not at
to.
all gonna.
Somebody's gotta.
Well, yeah, and like I'm not gonna call the police about it, and it's like the 9,000th thing on my list of things I'm concerned about. Like it's way down the list. That's about
Yeah.
as far as I've gotten. But that said, in looking into this group or into this movement, I've noticed both anarchist imagery and socialist imagery, and those two, at least in my head, don't go hand in glove together. And I'm wondering if there are different factions within the anti-fascist movement or different flavors of it that sort of attach more to one or the other of those, or not. What's your experience with that?
I'd say it's a mixed bag. I think the one thing, like I said, that does bring us all together is kind of protecting the marginalized groups, and to kind of offer something else, like kind of as we spoke about before this, where you said the Democrat group as of now, especially after Bernie, when they showed their true colors, they aren't really interested in upholding social justice as being a necessary thing. But if we've learned anything, um, hello, hello, I think the Skype cut out. Let's see. All right, the call cut out too. I don't think he knows. This guy is one of the dumbest people I've ever talked to. Yeah, there we go. Hello?
Are you there?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no problem.
Um, so you were in the middle of, and if you want to just take it from wherever you want, the Democrats showing their true colors.
Yeah. So I think we're the question was with the difference between social anarchists and then just regular anarchists. The one
Right.
thing that does kind of bring us all together is probably the social justice aspect of it, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of was drawn to the DSA as well, because there are just regular anarchists in it that are just unhappy with the way things are going, but they aren't necessarily liberal or Marxist or socialist or anything. They might just not just be happy with the way things are going. And they're not bad people. Those people are great too, and they're completely entitled to their opinions. But I think the main thing that draws us all together and the appeal to this is the fact that we're calling for change and willing to actually do something about it. And that really what needs to be done now is to kind of stand up to these white supremacy events. I mean, even even if it isn't I mean, it is alt-right, even if they don't claim it. But you have like people like Gavin McInnes's group, the Proud Boys, and like kind of what they call themselves, I think, is like the alt-right or something. But they're just as bad. They're just Nazis under a different name, and if you call them that, they kind of get very upset because you're kind of peeling back the mask on them. And
Mm, mm-hmm.
that's the really great thing about the Antifa is we really don't have time for this bullshit anymore. Like I've said earlier, we've seen this before. We know exactly what's going on, and we're not going to do something for it. I think just the other day, it wasn't even necessarily Antifa, although I'm sure I had some brothers there when the statue got torn down in Durham. That's completely fine, and it's good to see normal people just start to stand up against all the hatred and bigotry that this country was basically built on, and I just only wish it would have happened sooner.
Yeah, well, there's one thing I want to bring up that, like I sort of mentioned earlier. This show, this podcast for me has been a very rapid evolution of ideas, because it's real easy to just think that you know a lot about a topic when you don't have to, like, you don't talk about it and thousands of people listen and tell you what they think. The second you get into that mode, you find out a lot you didn't know. And I remember there was some protest or some situation where you had peaceful protesting, and then you seem to have a contingent of people that were doing a certain kind of vandalism that seemed to have no apparent purpose in the cause, like setting a car on fire.
Hmm.
And I remember saying at the time, like, that's just shooting the whole thing in the foot, because people are just gonna, like, who's gonna want to be part of your movement if you're, like, gonna set somebody's car on fire you don't even know. And there was, in our Facebook group, there was feedback about, you can't just brush anarchists under the rug like that, and you also can't just brush anti-fascists under the rug like that. And that's kind of when I brought up the anarchist versus socialist sides. I'm not trying to gotcha the anarchist side at all, and the idea that if there's an anarchist who hates fascism, that fact alone is, to me, good. But, like, do you ever feel like there are certain elements that give the whole thing a bad name or complicate the whole thing in the eyes of the average American?
Yeah, I definitely do, and I kind of know exactly what you're talking about. But I would say it's when we see stuff like that, most of the times that we see it, I know that Berkeley was very controversial for this. That they aren't actually, that's not real anti-fascism, and those aren't real Antifa. Those are usually people that are put into our organization or into our proximity for a specific reason by a specific group, whether that is law enforcement or it's the Nazis or the Pepes. I mean, we've outed these people several times and removed them, and they've felt repercussions of it. But I mean, when we go out and do an event, and when we go out and protest against white supremacy like this, and this was just a blatant act of it. This was the most blatant act I've ever seen in my life. Um, we have certain protocols, and typically it's stuff like avoiding attacking the marginalized groups, unless it's some of these Beckies that are pretty cozied up to the Nazis, as we like to say.
Okay.
And then sometimes it's just I mean, if we see people rioting or something, and they could be affiliated with us, we just kind of tell them to, relax. That's not what we're here for. But sometimes we have to kind of tone it down, and we might not be in the right, and we might not know what those people like. Most of the time, we're right, and we can pick out the people pretty easily and say, okay, that person's not with us, and we kind of do our best. But if they're, I mean, I'm not saying that I condone violence or anything that would be illegal, but if they're fighting against the Nazis, then usually that's good enough for us to say, okay, we're gonna kind of step off on them. If we see them throwing stuff through windows or trashing businesses, then we try and avoid it. But sometimes those are our guys, and if they're beating up a Starbucks, I can't really have too much sympathy on a company owned by a white person that makes their money off of marginalized groups, and that basically just extort or doesn't extort them, but just abuses them. And you kind of are picking up on what I'm saying, I think. And
Yeah, no, I am, and the thing is, I think that there's a messiness to that it's like clearly you guys, and when I say you guys, I know it's way more complicated than like yeah, it's not a uniform group, but I'm just saying people that would organize as part of Antifa. It does seem like you're not really concerned with whether average Joe American might be a little bit turned off by certain tactics or certain viewpoints, because it seems like you guys, in the interest of something that I think is very good, which is stopping, white nationalism, white supremacy, there's also there's a messiness there, because it seems like it doesn't really exist in the same plane of thought as your average just going to work, following the rules, driving under the speed limit American.
Yeah, and those people, I mean, they're kind of complacent in the whole aspect of white supremacy or whatever it may be. Just, I mean, like anti-BLM even. Those people aren't necessarily the ones we're ever going to be able to win over. I think NPR stream cut out again. Hello?
Hey, I
Hey.
figured it out. My phone was trying to. I didn't know that this was a glitch, but with my phone, apparently, if an alarm goes off, it like puts the Skype call on hold, and then it wouldn't get off of the on hold.
Okay,
So I had to. So
all right.
your
I didn't
internet
know if
connection is fine.
okay, all right.
You were saying something really important, though. You were saying that certain people, you'd never be able to. I think you'd never be able to sell certain kinds of people. I'd really like you to go back to that point,
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
you were on.
So average Joe American that goes to work and basically follows all the rules. Those aren't the people we're really ever going to be able to kind of win over with our message. And that's okay. That's kind of something that we've come across in the past and we kind of moved past. But they're not really going to pick up to our ideas. I mean, NPR just did a poll saying, do you support? And this is NPR, so it's not biased at all, and it's going to be very fair, and they're going to get the truth out. And they just did a poll saying, "Do you support whether or the removal of Confederate statues?" And almost 70% of the people polled said no, they don't support it, and that they should stay up. And that alone should be a testament for what we're fighting against and what we're sticking up for. And I mean, the statues got to go. Baltimore just last night started taking him down after one city council meeting, so it's not very hard. I think the next thing that we're gonna go with it, and this is just kind of between me and you, is attacking like Stone Mountain and stuff, and the really large Confederate statues that are just
Hmm.
a disgusting look into our past and our heritage.
Okay, I hear what you're saying there. So, one thing that complicates all of this is the anonymity, and I, I, what I gather, and please tell me if I'm wrong. What I gather is that the thought behind the anonymity, a lot of times people wear kind of a handkerchief over the face or ski masks, or they seem to not want to be identified easily. That at a certain point, that's to protect themselves from uh, certain kinds of threats, physical or otherwise, that they might get from people on the other. Not the other side, but maybe from white supremacists or certain people doxing them. Like, what's the thought process there?
It's kind of a two-part thing. The first part is obviously hiding our identities, and I mean I've already been threatened to be doxxed several times, and I even just had to lock my Twitter account because the frogs found me. So I might have to make a new one after this. But it's nothing that we haven't seen before, and we have protocols to get past it. But the second part is we have to be honest with ourselves, and the state is completely against us. I mean, Trump came out and had a speech where he more or less just completely praised the Nazis and their aesthetics and the fact that they were sticking up for their own heritage and blah blah blah. And it goes on and on. It's all very just disgusting and not surprising at all. But we have to kind of guard our own and know what we're up against. And if we're caught at one of these rallies, we're going to be tried, and we are going to be the results aren't going to be very good for us, basically. So we have to kind of stop ourselves from having that happen, and knowing the risks for it, and doing our best to come across them. That's why
Well,
we're
that's
able.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm just real quick, just so I can clarify. And again, I'm coming at this more just confusion than skepticism, but it seems to me that you look at Charlottesville, you've got, people who feel passionately enough about their hatred or their bigotry to take off a hood and grab a torch
Hmm.
and for more or less all the world to see, go out and reveal themselves. And of course, a lot of them are regretting that right now. But when
Yeah.
you say you'll be tried, um, I guess I'm trying to follow your line of thought there. Like, is the idea that you'll be tried after violence ensues or after somebody throws that brick in the Starbucks? Or like you think that the state is so connected with a white supremacist or with the things you oppose that it would actually end up with legal action against you?
Oh yeah, completely. I mean, we had a couple brothers that went to go protest at the inauguration, and they didn't even do anything wrong. They were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, and now they're facing civil suits, and we're having to raise as much money as we possibly can to get them off on these charges. And it's insane to
Well,
me
can you
that
tell me what the charges are?
it's basically vandalism and stuff along those lines, but it's they weren't really caught doing anything. It was kind of like I said, they were caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, and
So
now
like a disturbing the peace kind of thing where it's
it,
like vague and
exactly. And honestly, having been at the inauguration and watching what happened firsthand, it wasn't like we were really doing anything completely wrong. It was kind of like there was I guess state provocateurs would be the best thing that were there, and they were trying to kind of say, "Oh yeah, guys, let's do this, let's do that," and we had no part in doing any of that. But
now when you
who
say state provocateurs, I just want to explain for the audience, you mean basically people that are imposters that are actually in your estimation working for at some level working for the government and trying to sort of whip up violence from your
exactly?
side to make
Yes.
you look bad.
Yes, 110% with that one. Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of hard to prove and hard to document, but it's. I mean, who are you going to believe, the Nazi government that we have in place, or the people that are out putting our lives on the line to protect our people? So
Yeah,
it's
I have heard that sometimes police uh, will, like, and again, this is frankly rumor mill stuff that I've heard that I've never seen proof of, but you do hear about provocateurs on the side of the police or on the side of government that are there to sort of do things that if they can start looting or if they can start a riot, then they can point a finger and say, look, these people were out of line. These people were disorderly and bad, and we don't have to listen to what they're saying. We don't have to take them seriously because they were violent. But that said, could you tell us about some common misconceptions about this movement that we haven't covered yet? Or are there any that we haven't covered?
It's mainly the stuff that we kind of see online and kind of get made fun of. The fact that we're all like either gay or transsexual or limp wristed is a bad insult that I hear all the time, and that's
Who's saying that? Is that like white supremacist people? Is that
T-
Pepe people saying that?
yeah, yeah. Typically, that's coming from the Pepe crowd, and I've had plenty of run-ins with those people, and it's just, I mean, yeah, it's your reaction kind of says it all. It's pretty disgusting and just completely untrue. A lot
Yeah.
of
Well, I also saw somebody online saying, "Oh, they're all Jews," and I'm sitting here thinking that's such a like. I
I
so
hear that
don't
one. I hear
understand.
that one a lot too, and it does really piss me off too, because the fact that I'm Jewish has nothing to do with this at all.
Well,
It's
and that's the thing. Like, I don't think it comes down to that. I don't think that's any. Like, obviously, I think that would be a great reason and motivator to oppose Nazis, certainly. But like the idea that it's like to a person that it all involves Judaism to me just seems unlikely and silly as a thing to just leap to out of hand.
Yeah, and that's kind of like their go-to thing, and it's ridiculous. Like I don't know where it comes from, but I that's exactly what I'm talking about, and that's why we do what we do. Because, like I said, we saw this in 1930s, and we're seeing it again. It's so blatant. How could you argue against it?
Hmm. Okay, so I read a lot of opinions on social media, and as I'm sure you know, there's a swath of moderates, centrists, and liberals who say things like, hey, you can't stamp out racism with bullying tactics, or hey, don't call people Nazis frivolously, or the word won't have any meaning anymore. What would you say to people with that view? If you had the mic, if you think they would listen and learn something, what do you wish they would understand?
The only reason these people have gotten any platform or any semblance of being heard is from bullying tactics. I mean, it's been since Gamergate. It's been since white nationalism 1.0 when my dad did activism, and he warned me about it. And that's all they have, and it's because they're just completely insecure, and we have to do our best to stop them as much as we can.
Well, okay, so I guess my question becomes, and again, I'm a curious observer here, but there is a school of thought that there's nonviolent protest. You got your Gandhis, you got your Martin Luther Kings. Like what? Uh, and we've seen that at times be effective in certain ways. What is your sense of? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, do you think Antifa sees that as not enough? Is there something ideologically that makes it where instead of nonviolent, we're going to take it to the possibility of violence because what? You know what I mean? Like fill that philosophy out for me a little bit.
I would say that it's especially in today's world, that you kind of have to pick a side with these things, and make a stand for yourself more or less. And if we just sit idly by during these things, then that's how Richard Spencer and all those people have been able to go on for so long, is because people just sat idly by and let them do it. I mean, I think there's like they have a bunch of podcasts and stuff, and that's mainly where they all started. But they're just now in 2017, in August 2017, they're just now facing repercussions and getting deplatformed, and it's kind of late on that, guys. We,
Hmm.
we we have to nip these things in the butt as best we can, and the fact that it hasn't been done yet is a bit of a problem, and
Sure,
that's
sure.
where we come in.
Okay, so let's talk about your experience in Charlottesville. From what you saw, was there a difference between how the cops were treating Unite the Right protesters versus specifically Antifa counter protesters?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was pretty clear from the get go that we were up against, like I said, the state and the Nazis too, and they were given more of like a wink and a nod, like, we're on, like, more or less, we're on your side, guys, and it
To the Nazis.
yes, yeah, sorry. They gave a wink and the nod to the Nazis, and we had people being pushed back. We had people being pushed into the Nazis by the police and by barricades and stuff, and the state was kind of pushing for a conflict with them,
That's what
and
I've heard. I saw a little iPhone video where a guy said, "Notice how these cops are not intervening where they should because they're hoping there will be some kind of violence, or they're hoping for a riot. They're hoping to be able to sort of be able to, I guess, dismiss the counter protester side, including
exactly,
Antifa,
yeah,
because they were violent."
yeah, exactly, and we even saw a couple sheriffs, I believe, of Charlottesville try and plant weapons near us, and we have that all on video, and it's
How
gonna
does
be.
that work?
Well, it was more of like a kind of like dropping pocket knives and batteries and stuff was another one because we were accused of throwing batteries and stuff at the Nazis, but we did no such thing. We were completely in the right on this one, and we didn't show up for violence, but we knew that there was a good possibility of it. So we did our best to document all these things, and actually we're going to be submitting a video on this to itsgoingdown.org pretty soon. So
Okay.
so keep your eyes out for that.
Yeah, so like I guess that leads me to a question that you sort of alluded to this earlier, but in your opinion, um, Antifa, as you understand it, is it ideally nonviolent until provoked? Basically, like only in self defense. Is that correct, or am I not quite getting the
Yeah,
version as you'd say it?
I'd say 90 95% we don't want it to come to violence, but we do want the Nazis and the Pepes and the Proud Boys to know that we're not afraid of you anymore, and we're not afraid to stand up into the eyes of fascism and the eyes of white supremacy, and we're not just going to sit idly by while you destroy our country and try and return it to what you call it, quote unquote, what it once was.
Right. Let me ask you this. So a lot of these guys, and I say guys, but just people, who were there for the Unite the Right rally, they use different phrases, different labels to mean that they wish there was an all-white country, an ethno-state, separatist, secession, whatever way they want to say it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I'm kind of new to a lot of these ways of thinking in terms of, like, thinking of them as practical realities. But, like, let's say, a couple thousand of these chuckleheads, like, buy an island in the Pacific, and they're all going to go out there and just have their own little, like, the size of, I don't know, Rhode Island, like a little all white state.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you look, and that's their plan. They're going to go break off and do that away from the United States. If that happened, would you be like, good riddance? Would that bother you that it came to that? Like, what would your take on that be?
In from the sounds of it, that seems like it would be a fix. But we know we me and you, we kind of know how these people think, and we know they're never going to be happy with that. I mean, we saw it with Hitler. We saw it basically with Western imperialism in general. They're never going to stop with just an island. They're always going to push it and try and take more. And let's be real, ethno states don't exist, and they can't exist. It's just not something that's feasible.
Sure. And
And
at what point is, like, if somebody who's on their side but is a little bit brown, or they're like a little bit Jewish, like at what point? I mean, on top of the fact that it's a ridiculous idea and based on terrible things, it also seems extremely weird and hard to manage, and like just kind of ridiculous from the get go.
Yeah, no, and they don't even have an answer for these types of things either. They can't even answer whether or not. I think the funny thing they like to do is joke around and say, oh well, are Irish white or are Italian white or X, Y, and Z, and they do so much infighting. They can't know. And the same thing too is are Jews white and stuff too. Obviously, we are. It's not a hard question. It's just I think the upstanding question, and that I like patriotism too much is "Are we American?" And I don't mean the American of yore. I mean the kind of new Americans where we fight against bigotry and we stand up for our minority groups and try and push them to the forefront, because what we've been doing for so long obviously hasn't been working, and we have to start thinking of new measures to answer that.
Sure. And, I find myself agreeing with so much of your ideology, and yet I think that I'm a little bit closer to that average Joe American who, like, I'm more or less law abiding, more or less not wanting to ruffle feathers. And so the conflict with me is trying to wrap my head around uh, how to focus on the things that I have in common ideologically with this movement while trying to sort of parse out, like, what level is a bridge too far for me? Like, when you mentioned the Starbucks thing, and I cringed more at that than the idea of defending marginalized people from white supremacists. And I feel like it's partly just I'm a part of this culture that, it's like corporations run everything. We're designed, or it's all designed to make us complacent. So that's the conflict with me. I'm sure it's the conflict a lot of listeners are having. But I really feel like we've gotten a much closer look at the inside of this movement and the logic within it. And I just want to ask before we wrap up, is there anything else you want people to know that might not be reported about the Antifa movement or anything along these lines we've been talking about in the mainstream media?
Um, I mean, the people that I think that are coming to our side are going to kind of pick up on what I've been saying about this, and the fact that we are on the right side of history more or less with all of this. And it's not okay to just sit idly by anymore, guys. It's time to stand and almost fight for what we know is right. It's almost like your kind of moral duty at this point.
So you feel like it's immoral to be complacent?
More or less, yeah. And I know, and I understand how bad that sounds, but the longer you wait, the longer that Richard Spencer has time to plan his next event, or whatever it may be. I mean, I don't know how at this point you can still sit there and think that the fact that we still have monuments for people that owned slaves, like Mount Rushmore and stuff like that, that can no longer go on, and that is.
So actually, that's a good question. I didn't expect to open up another can, but one thing Trump said in his press conference, one of them recently, was Jefferson was a slave owner, Washington was a slave owner. You're going to erase them too. And when I hear that, I think, well, no, it's a different thing. The Confederacy is a different thing than our founding fathers. But to hear you mention Mount Rushmore, so you feel like at a certain point, if someone owns slaves, no statues.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, the fact that we still have to say that is kind of astounding to me. Not to, I don't mean offense with that, but it's just it kind of shows what we're living in, and what we
So you,
see.
right. So I was talking with a friend the other day about how the future is never quite what you expect. Like if we had gone back 20 years, or I guess what I'm trying to say is that in all likelihood, the the political mainstream and the political cutting edge of 20 years from now is not something we would be able to predict, probably because it would just seem so foreign and seem so strange to us now. And it sounds like your thought is that actually, even though your politics, your ideology feel a bit extreme compared to the mainstream of America, that actually that's where things are going. That's the future of politics, according to you.
Yeah, unfortunately as it is, yeah, that's the necessary where it needs to go. And I mean, who thought during Obama's legacy that we were going to ever have to fight against literal Nazis in our country?
It
I
is. It is crazy to think about, for
Yeah,
sure.
so 20 years from now it's crazy. I'm looking more towards like what 2020, 3 years from now, where Mark Zuckerberg might be running one day, and that seems more likely as the days go on, especially the fact that he hired the
Hillary's pollster.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You've been following this, so you're pretty
Oh yeah.
woke to this.
Oh, and didn't he put an Instagram post saying Iowa was his kind of country or something very pandery to Iowa?
Yes, yeah, completely. I've been following this since he started doing the what I call the Americana tour, and going into people's homes and eating off of paper plates and stuff with them, and it's just insulting at this point. We know Zuckerberg isn't your average Joe American, and we know what he's kind of cozying up to, and we can't let him run either. It's ridiculous that we have to start fighting against him too, but I could easily see him being the face of the Democrat Party in 2020.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to really like. Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying I really don't want that to be the case. Just
Oh,
because
me
just the
neither.
notion that
I hope I'm wrong too. Believe
I don't
me.
even want to have to address it because it's like I don't want to jinx it. But yeah, like I'm with you on that one. But anyway, this has been really enlightening. I appreciate your honesty. I'm sure it's strange to like just speak your views in a situation where you don't know how they're going to be taken. But I do appreciate you shining a light on this and letting us into a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes and behind what's being reported in the mainstream media. So thanks for being with us today.
Oh no, thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, cool. I hope that was like all good with you.
Oh no, that was awesome. I really appreciate it.
Great,
This was excellent.
great. I to be honest with you, I may cut it down by as much as like 30%, just because I think some questions yielded stuff that my audience already knows, and some was
Hmm.
new. And but again, I never to edit the content, only to just sort of stick to the question and answer chunks that like I found to be most educational. If that's cool with you.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Well, we're coming out on Friday, the next episode that is. If you want to follow us, we are at Trends Like These, and we're on iTunes. We also have a parent website that you can go to. But I think this is going to be really interesting. Some people are going to, I mean, it's, as you know, controversial, but I'm fascinated, and I feel like while I'm not ready to throw any punches. Like I do almost wonder if the movement you're in now is actually what the future is going to look. The future of liberalism, the future of being woke is going to look like.
Yeah, I like to think it is, but I am a little bit biased on this, so
Well, we'll see, I guess. But yeah, if you can just export the audio and then Dropbox it to me via DM, that would be great.
absolutely. Thank you, Brent.
Hey, no problem, no problem. And I'll be in touch. If you ever want to DM me, feel free.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, holy shit, guys. Oh man, that was fun. That was a lot of fun. That's the opposition that we're up against. So if I guess I was wrong and the optics doesn't matter because the people we're up against are fucking retarded. So thank you for watching. I'm gonna put this up on YouTube probably tonight, and yeah, I'm gonna go pee. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you. I'm gonna finish this Hearthstone game. But yeah, don't do anything. Don't at him until he uploads that episode, and we can get a good archive on it, and then just make him completely look like a fucking retard. He didn't. I went private 15 minutes before the stream, and he didn't look at my fucking timeline once. That's how fucking stupid this guy is. So, holy fucking shit. I don't know anymore, guys. That's literally liberalism. That's like the people, and like the guy was too much of a fucking pussy to actually like still take a stance when it's like when I was like proposing everything as like just white supremacy and all this shit. Like, oh fucking dear lord, that's what we're up against. That's the people that are trying to just literally destroy our heritage. And holy fuck.